Going for public input. I'm a little hot there, Thomas. Thank you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, any public input? Lynn, what do you got? You have to come up here and speak into the microphone. Does Tammy want to do the microphone? Go, Lynn, please. Please go up and speak. And yes. And Lynn, can you, if you want. Hey,
Testing, 1, 2.
that'll do.
And
Okay.
Lynn, can you, everybody's speaking, and can you say your name and where you're from? Thank you.
My name is Lynn Ann Orstano. I live at 4088 Manzanilla Drive in Nice. First of all, testing, I'd like to thank the Nice Water Company for painting my fire hydrant bright, beautiful yellow. And my second thing is, I'm disabled, and my friend and I in Lakeport, the city of Lakeport, he got called the N-word, and I got yelled at in Lakeport, the city of Lakeport. And I'm so angry, I'm going over the Hopland grade and shopping at Target and not Lake County with my money. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Lynn. Public input. Any more public input? Yes. Please go to the microphone.
Hi, I'm Lisa Marie Benavides. I live in Upper Lake. I'm the one-stop operator over the American Job Center of California for Lake County. And I just wanted to let everyone know, I think in a meeting or two we've been asking about marshals. Well, just today, my center confirmed we will be supporting them with their hiring event. They're going to be hiring 60 people next week. They'll be at the Job Center, which is at 55 First Street in Lakeport, Monday through Thursday. Walk-ins are taken. They can also apply online and come in. We will help with resumes, we'll help with interviews, but they're doing the first and second interviews at our center next week, and then the following week they'll receive their orientation. So I have tons of flyers. Please take them from me. You can also contact me directly for anything that's going on at the Job Center. Sure.
Thank you. Any more public input? All right. Chief Ciancio is not here. Okay, so, all right, so then it's Danny Wind with the Traffic Safety Now.
It's okay if I take this?
Yes.
Hi, y'all. I'm back. And with tech, thanks to Bruno over there. My name's Danny Wind. I'm from Lakeport. I would like to apologize on behalf of some of the ill-behaved people in Lakeport, but I am your neighbor from the south. I worked with Thomas on a little project through a nonprofit. I'm a member of the nonprofit called Strong Towns. They're a nonprofit focused a lot with the way we have developed following World War II and kind of they're interested in a lot of different things, including infrastructure, road safety, street safety, productive places, and financial solvency. Thomas asked me to come and talk a little bit about the presentation or the webinar we did a few months ago. I am not the best public speaker, but I'm going to struggle through this if you don't mind. So what what we did was this thing called a crash analysis studio, which is where someone like me or a member of the public can nominate a crash. It doesn't have to be fatal, but any sort of a crash to this organization. And what they do is they secure some funders and some resources and some data. Thanks to me, I collected the data for them. And we kind of try to do a root cause analysis when a crash does happen. So I'm sure many of you are familiar with one of the fatalities that happened along Highway 20. So I nominated the one that happened by Marina Market. I'm sure you guys are familiar with that on Highway 20. It happened on, I think, February 14th. And so just to get started here, I just kind of wanted to give you an overview, and I wanted to play a short segment from that actual webinar. If you're interested in seeing the whole entire thing, it's about an hour and 20 minutes. We go very in-depth to the things that contributed to the crash, and then also we talk about what kind of things are possible for the future. And I've been really impressed by the direction that Caltrans is going in the last year. They've really shifted their direction as to their approach to safe streets and productive environments, because I'm sure all of you are familiar with the way Highway 20 behaves with the people that are on it. So, yeah, I haven't started yet. Oh, you're saying it might not be hooked up to the, got it. Let's see what we can do. That might be a stickler. Oh, come on. Sorry, it's making me reload. Here we go. So we gathered together. What they like to do is they like to have some technical professionals who work in this field of street safety and planning, and then they also like to have some local experts, which was me and Thomas, and we get to provide kind of a lot of the context about what it's like to walk in this area, how people behave, how people drive, because obviously Thomas was my first choice because he rides bike, but he also drives that road much more often than I get to drive that road because I live in Lakeport. So he was an obvious choice. This is Don Kostelek. He's from a group called Verdunity. He kind of was already introduced, but you can get the full thing if you go online, and I will see if we get some audio. Yeah.
Navigation. Yeah, thanks for having me. Don Kostelek with Vitruvian Planning. I'm based in Boise, Idaho. Ironically, we were in Napa County doing work with Blue Zone.
You guys hear that all right?
It's the week after this occurred, so I was certainly kind of there for all the weather you were experiencing with that. So, and one, thanks to Danny for all the work they did in getting some of the on-the-ground information and being able to use that. So, and looking at this, when I look at contributing factors for this, we can take a lot from a media report, and you can find this as local advocates. So if we just look at the things I've underlined here, a 67-year-old person, that's a factor. The time of day, as Tony mentioned, at night, it was raining. They were walking northbound across the highway. The driver was going 40 miles an hour, and then here's kind of the disturbing line. The pedestrian walked into the eastbound lane directly into the path. And without getting too deep in victim blaming, that's a challenge in our crashes when there aren't witnesses, because the driver's the only witness. And if we look at things about speed, things like seatbelt use, if I'm in a crash and I'm out of the vehicle, I'm tending to the person, and the police show up, they will say, "Were you wearing your seatbelt when driving?" And if you say yes, that gets tagged and it goes into our national database. So who's going to tell the police that they weren't wearing their seatbelt? Those kind of the inside hardball stuff. So when we look at contributing factors, there were people walking and driving. Amazing, right? Land use, as Tony talked about, they were going somewhere. Something you'll see in a lot of crash reports is we don't know why the pedestrian was there at that time of day. We never asked why the driver was there at that time of day. The night and rainy conditions, the age, the speed of the vehicle, and then the design of the streets that I'll talk about later really don't mesh with the safety we want to see. So let's talk about the people of Nice. As a population, you're older. About 10 years older than the median age of the rest of California. You're also a tourism hub, so you're going to have people driving and walking that might not be familiar with the community. That's part of the people factor. As Tony mentioned, with the land uses, people are going somewhere. These are the areas where people live and stay. The blue areas are where people play and have fun, and the purple areas are where people shop, dine, and socialize in your community. So we shouldn't be surprised when someone wants to move about freely within these different zones, and especially in a place that brags about having some of the cleanest air quality in California. We want them walking instead of driving short distances. You can go out and Google what's called a sun graph for your community, and you will get the lighting conditions for different times of year. So I took that for Nice and backed it up to February 14th. And when we look in the bottom left, this was clearly nighttime. It wasn't even twilight, and it had been night for 30 minutes. So when we look at a graph like this, you can go back months later and go out at the same time of day in terms of the lighting conditions to see what was there. And if you've never done a walk audit at night, it completely changes your perspective. Weather was a factor. If it's raining, it takes longer for a vehicle to slow down. And this image shows at 35 miles an hour, we know this person was going faster than that. California Vehicle Code. No person shall drive a vehicle at a speed greater than is reasonable and prudent. And I know many of you have heard this of too fast for conditions about rain and snow. It never gets applied to when pedestrians might be present in an area. Yet when you look at the law, that is definitely a piece of the code that is a responsibility here. When we look at pedestrian rights and duties, every pedestrian at any point other than within a marked and an unmarked crosswalk. There are two marked crosswalks here, but I would argue where the person was crossing was also at a public street intersection with Highway 20, and it is an unmarked crosswalk, and pedestrians have the same rights in those unmarked crosswalks as marked crosswalks. And even without that, it is still the motorist's duty to exercise due care for any pedestrian upon the roadway. That's the law. We will also oftentimes hear speed was not a factor, and that'll come out in police reports. Speed is always a factor in the death. But police and others will tend to look at this of, well, 40 miles an hour, the person was going 40, speeding or exceeding the speed limit was not a factor, but I would even question that. And here's why we know this. Tony showed you, and I think the graphic that Danny provided about the chance of death of a pedestrian at certain speeds. It's also different for age. And this is a study done by AAA 15 years ago that looked at the average risk of a person 70 years old versus 30 as it relates to the speed of the road. And if you're 30, you can withstand 10 miles an hour more of force than a 70-year-old. This person was 67 years old. So when we draw on this graph 40 miles an hour and go up to the 70 mile an hour curve, or 70 years old curve, nearly a 75% chance of death. Had this person been 30 years old, we're looking at about a 30% chance of death. And later I will talk about a target speed on this of 25 miles an hour that's consistent with California policies. Had we had a target speed that self-enforced a 25 mile an hour speed limit, we would have increased this person's chance of survival by more than 50%. That's the physics of this. So road design is a contributing factor. You can see there's not much there to restrain speeds in this corridor. And if you followed things like strong towns and stuff for a while, we're always talking about narrow travel lanes, 10-foot travel lanes. They're useless when the rest of this might as well be a runway for vehicles and things. So we have to talk about other factors in that, which we will get into with some of the design improvements. Some other factors here from street design: no sidewalks, nothing that's there for pedestrians to even move safely about this corridor. There's no curbing or other edge treatments. Not only does that nullify the 10-foot lanes that are there, there's infinite crash risk along this because there is no access control. So why would a pedestrian want to cross there where the person is in the video instead of coming to the crosswalk? well, they're going to run into dozens of other conflicts with turning motorists because it's a wide open buffet for motorists to pull into this. There's no lighting on the corridor. We don't even have connectivity to the crosswalk at this one location where the sidewalk is. So if we're going to tell pedestrians to use crosswalks, we have to treat them as safe places to cross. There's no crosswalk signage at this crosswalk. Excuse me. So, last factors here. I live in the Blue House. I don't know where this person lived. I don't know where they were going or coming from. But we know we have stores here. And we'll hear oftentimes, well, just go to the nearest crosswalk, pedestrians. Why are you so lazy? It's safer for you. Well, we have 950 feet between these marked crosswalks. So if I want to walk from my house to this store in the most direct line possible, I have about a 2-minute walk, and it's 400 feet from home. Now, a pedestrian moves at about 3.5 feet per second. Probably at this age, that's about right. It might be a little slower. A motorist at 40 miles an hour is moving 59 feet per second. But just go to the nearest crosswalk, pedestrians. Well, while it may not seem onerous to take this blue line route, we almost triple our walk time and our walk distance. And why would we ask somebody to do that? What if we asked the motorist? What if we asked the motorist who just wanted to cross this street, hey, go 5 minutes out of your way to cross the street? This is what it would look like in Nice. They would have to drive, I want to say it was almost 2 miles to the west. You're probably familiar with where this roundabout is, and make a U-turn to come back. We would never put that expectation on a motorist, but in this situation, that's the expectation we put on a pedestrian. So when we look at all these things together, the street design, one, the street isn't designed for the people of Nice. It's not designed for the land uses in Nice. It suggests out of direction travel for non-motorists while giving pedestrians or motorists free rein and infinite access along it. No facilities for pedestrians there. I would say the design of this isn't even done in consideration of the expectations of California's traffic laws, and no lighting for street safety.
I guess that's all we're going to get. I think that was about where we wanted to. Yeah, I think that was actually it. So thank you for tolerating my scuffed audio there. That was something I hadn't thought about. So I like that because, we talk a lot more about other contributing factors. It's, like I said, it's an hour and 20 minutes, and that was already kind of a long time, but I thought Dawn did the best way of kind of visualizing how we treat vehicle traffic differently than pedestrians, yet in the beginning of that video, you'll actually see that we caught some drone footage of someone crossing right there at that time, and I noticed there was a number of people crossing, not in the crosswalk, and I think that also plays a lot into it, that distance that you would have to go in a car to make up for that same amount of time that a pedestrian would have to walk really plays a factor into the decisions people make of not going to a crosswalk. So now to kind of pivot off of that, one of the reasons that I gravitated towards this program was because they talk about the Strong Towns process to public investment. 1, humbly observe where people in your community struggle. 2, ask the question, what is the next smallest thing we can do right now to address that struggle? 3, do that thing, do it right now. And then 4, repeat. And so I want to focus first on the first one, because this is really the first step into just noticing these things when you're out and about on your day-to-day life. The key to the first step is humility, emptying our minds of as many possible preconceived notions about the problems and solutions in a place as possible. We humble ourselves to observe as a proxy for lived experience. We are trying to understand from the perspective of those who struggle to use the city as it has been built, where the struggles are. A great way to observe is to walk with someone, literally treading the path with them to understand how they struggle. And that is taken from Charles Marone in an article called The Strong Towns Approach to Public Investment. So one of the things I did when I was just driving around Upper Lake, because I am not from this community, despite working at Sealy, I never really quite made it all the way over into town here that often. But I kind of wanted to look around and see if there was anything that I noticed, just kind of practicing that humble observation. One of the things I noticed at First Street was that you have some phenomenal little bridges going through town with some little sidewalks. But as you go up to those sidewalks on each side of the bridge, it's overgrown on both sides. And so those sorts of things really contribute to where a pedestrian has to go in the street to deal with traffic, especially over a bridge. And then also you have this place, I believe it's Government and Highway 20, where you can see the crosswalk is, and you can see that's called a desire path, that little dirt path right there where people are walking, and it makes sense, right? There's a park nearby, there's a school nearby, so there's going to be lots of people walking. One of the things that I think is a good anecdote to this point is Walt Disney is kind of credited with really good design for his parks. And there's this old anecdote, I don't know if it's true, where his workers were putting up a fence in the park, and he walks up and he says, "Why are you putting this fence here? It's going to wreck the view." And it's because, well, there's people walking on the grass. And so what he decides to say, he says, "No, don't put a fence up here. We're not trying to keep people from walking here. Just put the walkway here." You know, it's kind of just addressing those things as you see them. And obviously, you know, part of the reason I chose this crash studio is because Highway 20 is Caltrans operated, and it takes a long time to do these things. I kind of took it on as an Everest. Like, if we can make some changes on Highway 20 in a short period of time, like that's going to spread like wildfire. Sorry, bad analogy. Hopefully that's going to spread to other communities so that, you know, we can continue this momentum. A lot of what Strong Towns advocates for is for citizens to kind of take these things into account for themselves, sort of do demonstrations. You're all familiar with a lot of the events that go on in our downtowns, where we close down all of Main Street, and you get a lot of pedestrian activity there when there's no vehicles on the street. And so they talk a lot about how you can activate spaces in that way as well. That's all kind of related to this. Just going a little bit further, because I had some people express to me when Andreas did a presentation that there was some interest about the school area. So this is called Strava. It's an app that tracks cycling and walking. Usually not everyone, but you have to go in and log this. And it's a heat map that actually shows where people are walking. So this first one shows foot sports for the area, so that's walking, that's running. The second one shows all cycle sports, and so you can see it's a little bit different, a little bit hotter on the highways, and on, I think that's your First Street, if I'm not familiar. And this is a combination of the two of them. So one of the things that I noticed immediately is that you have a segment here where you have a lot of pedestrians and cyclists coming into your essential school, and then you have people going around in school. Makes sense, right? Kids should be able to walk to school, but oftentimes parents don't feel comfortable letting their kids walk to school. I also looked at a thing called Safe Routes to School map on the Traffic Injury Mapping System, or TIMS. Anyone can go on and access this. It goes through UC Berkeley. You do have to make an account to use it and view some of this stuff. But essentially what it does is it gives you a radius of accidents that have been logged with the state of California, which are public information. And those white ones are going to be, the colors basically rate the severity of the crash. So obviously on Highway 20, we have some yellows down there. That's getting into a more severe injury. And then that red pedestrian is oftentimes a fatal. And I wanted to focus specifically on this intersection of First and Government Street because I think it is interesting, and I'm sure a lot of you people. I believe this is your First Street? Yeah. So just because Highway 20 is a little bit difficult to get stuff done quickly on, county roads are sometimes easier, to adapt things to get policy done. State of California for Caltrans has a lot of policies that are really hard to push through. They're trying to change that with a lot of their systems, but it's been slow going. So one of the things that you can do if you're familiar with just Microsoft Paint, I know not everyone's familiar with Windows and basic stuff, but just using a painting software to kind of neaten up some of these intersections. This is a lot of the kind of stuff that Caltrans is looking to do with their Complete Streets projects. You can just change a little bit just to make it a little bit neater, just to kind of change the layout of things. Now this is just my mock-up. This is what I would do. I'm not an engineer. I have no professional accreditations. I'm just learning based on what other people have done. So a lot of the things that contribute to this are the, sorry, my phone's going off. The way the intersection meets with the street also kind of encourages that running the right-hand turn to go to the school, right? If we have an angle that allows people to see further, while that does increase sight lines, it can also increase someone's perception that it is safe earlier, so they're more likely to run that stop sign. So doing little things like just turning the street and just making it hit at a 90-degree angle, that can do a lot. A little hard to see, but there's some yellow markers on the side there. They're called flex posts. I'm sure you've seen them around at construction sites. They're temporary, they're quick build, and they basically make cars feel that it's a narrower space. And that feeling tells drivers at any level, whether they're a good driver, bad driver, new driver, no license, whatever, it tells people to activate a different part in their mind to address the road differently. There's some other things here, like painting your fire lane on that right-hand side to make sure that nobody's parking there, so that when there is a pedestrian there, people coming onto that street have a better view. That's called daylighting. There's actually some laws that came down from the state of California that make it easier for municipalities to kind of do that red fire lane right next to intersection, or right next to crosswalks. And oftentimes the first thing cited is that this won't be wide enough to facilitate truck traffic. Oftentimes schools still have to get trucks delivering stuff. With those buffers that I showed you in the last slide, I took measurements of the street and then I made this mock-up of it. And so with those adjustments and 6-foot buffer on that sidewalk side and a 10-foot on that side without a sidewalk, you'd still have 12-foot drive lanes, and you'd be able to put like 3/4-inch little buffers, little dots, I'm sure you've seen them in other places, to also tell people that, hey, this is an area you need to slow down. It's kind of like it's designing streets in a way that's going to induce the behavior that we'd like to see out of drivers. So that being said, I know the school was a topic of interest at one of the last meetings, and that's oftentimes a common thing, right? You have a bunch of parents dropping kids off in the morning, you have buses, you have lots of things to work out. I took some measurements on this street, and they are very, very, very wide streets. You could really have a roundabout in there, but I kind of wanted to field some questions about people who maybe are familiar with this area, kind of what you're noticing in this area, so that you can give that context to me and Thomas, and maybe we can take some ideas later. I'll come back to this when we get to some questions real quick. I just wanted to point out this is for our new local conversation. If you want to be added to our email list, if you want to follow us on social media, this is going to be the group. We get support from Strong Towns, not monetarily. They just let us talk to them, and they hold office hours. They've been really helpful. They did cop the cost on the equipment that I got to do a rudimentary speed study and some measurements. They've been really helpful, but I am still a volunteer. I did this out of interest for Safe Streets, and really as someone who's grown tired of all the fatalities that we have on our roadways. And I'm just getting started at this, so I can't imagine some of the people that have been here longer than I have. So if you are interested in following, you can find us at Chaotic But Smart. That's our local conversation. We're on all the platforms, and you can scan that QR code. And I'll bounce back to that in a second. One of the things that I'm excited about that kind of just touches on a lot of the different items that we talk about. I talked about just touched on housing. Strong Towns is really interested in housing, how we can do incremental housing. We need a lot of housing, but what they focus on is little a affordable housing, housing that is broadly affordable, not necessarily affordable housing that gets government subsidies to be for low-income people. We need housing that's broadly affordable at a wide range of price range, and they talk about that recently in their new book. I'm excited for this project, Guerrilla Wayfinding. I'm taking it from another group that did this years ago. Basically, they create signs and post them throughout the city in an attempt to want to do more permanent infrastructure, more signage later, because oftentimes it's not the distance that people are actually concerned about when they're walking, it's their perception of distance. Similar to like what we saw in the Crash Studio, is crossing the street there without their sidewalks is not very far. It wouldn't take very long, but if you have to go all the way out to the crosswalk, it does take a little bit longer. And oftentimes, that in and of itself, just knowing that it takes 3 minutes longer, can be the decider that makes people choose driving instead of walking instead. So that's just something I'm excited about. I'll pop back to this. Like I said, I'm just a volunteer. I just did this because it's a special interest of mine. I'd like to continue to do this program. I've had some good responses from the city of Lakeport about wanting to do more projects like this. Strong Towns really wants municipalities and local conversations to be able to take on this project and kind of do that hour-and-a-half-hour webinar when fatalities happen, with the whole intention that eventually we won't have to do these. So when we do have fatal crashes, that we can learn from those fatal crashes so we can reduce them from happening in the future. If you have any questions, or you can provide maybe some insight. I think the biggest thing that I was wondering about with this intersection is how people actually walk in this area. You can see that there's one crosswalk in this area, but I know that the high school is up to that upper side. There's another crosswalk off the camera here, just above it, that you can't see. And so I was really interested because from my perspective, if I was walking from your downtown to the school or vice versa, I might not necessarily use those crosswalks if I was, let's just say, blind. If I couldn't see those crosswalks, you know, humans are very good at making long distances into short ones by just cutting corners. So I was curious if anyone is from this area, drops off kids in this area or frequents this area. Basically, what do you notice about the way pedestrians are moving? I know that cars are definitely running that right-hand stop sign there, which, as you can see, that white line curves into the corner, which again, it kind of like induces that behavior. It's like we're encouraging people to go and make that right turn faster when we do things like that. Yeah. Yeah.
Very much involved in the school safety and the situation that we have. And I've repeated myself a number of times, but it falls under the guise of public works, and that director has changed. And what I was told last time, it's been many months ago, was that they would look at it in August. Well, school resumes in August, and I sent pictures and kind of really pled a case of the fact that this is extremely dangerous. In the mornings at 8 o'clock when there's drop-off to the new facility, they were trying to direct the traffic. Well, you're to make a left, and they're making right. It's a real hazard to the drop-off and pick-up process.
Just so I can understand, where you said they were trying to make the left turn only?
An additional point that I made was that the middle school students travel over to the high school for their lunch. And
got it. Yes,
right.
yes, the middle school
But-
over there. Yes,
but
yes, thank you.
Yeah, but what is in existence is a very faded crosswalk. So the students have to cross, come back up and over, whereas there's a natural passageway, if they would consider putting a crosswalk there, they could walk down this little, right straight over to the crosswalk and make their way. Now, I'm frustrated because it just doesn't seem like it's making any progress. And I do know, and I had requested that the new Public Works Director come and speak to the situation. Because I already saw one rear end accident with the drop-offs. That's another, there are two issues here. Safe travel from the middle school to the high school and back, and then the drop-off at the kindergarten, the new complex at the school.
That's the one that's next to the middle school, right? Yeah.
Take a microphone to PJ, he has a response to that.
So Scott had come to another town hall, the Central Region, and then talked about the Safe Schools grant that they applied for and received. And so because of this situation, he said that he would include these schools into that, and that I could put some of the discretionary funds for the cannabis discretionary funds into it. Remember, we talked about how I wanted to do that because I didn't want to wait on Public Works to help you guys out. Well, he said he'd include it, and if there's an amount that needs to go on top of it, we could use those discretionary funds. Glenn is aware of it. I've talked with Glenn, and if we can get him here, he can elaborate on that.
I would really like that, because school resumes in just a shorter than a month away, and we really need to do something quickly and to keep these students safe.
Can we, Chairman, can we invite Mr. March? Ken March, right? The new, Glenn March, Mr. March, to come to our meeting for next month on the agenda. And Danny, can I invite you back for that meeting as well for
I'll check my
input?
calendar, but I think so.
And I just want to thank you for bringing the level of awareness to us by your, your enthusiasm and your compassion.
A lot of doing this process with the Crash Analysis Studio was also so that I could learn how that process functioned and work with their staff to kind of see behind the curtain, to see the organizing and contacts they do. I'll run over here first, and then.
Yes, hi. I've called Governor Gavin Newsom's office about Lake County because we had a person die, a senior, on Manzanilla Drive. The guy came flying off 20 and killed him while he went down to the Nice post office. And I've requested speed bumps on Manzanilla Drive because people are flying off Highway 20. And Gavin Newsom's office said, look, we're giving Lake County money. But when I called Public Works office about all this, they said there's no money. So I'm a little confused about Gavin Newsom's office saying they're giving Lake County money for all these things, and yet Lake County says there's no money. Lots of confusion.
Thank you, Lynn.
Yeah, thank you. I'm also concerned about like budget things over the next year or two. I know that there's been some groups that have really been wanting, in the event of budget turndowns, that we still get the funding for certain sidewalk improvements. And so Thomas and I go to these Caltrans pedestrian and bicycle advisory committee meetings, very much advisory capacity. I think we're all really learning together because this is still new for them. But I'm also concerned about that. One of the things that the Strong Towns kind of approach advocates for is for people going out and doing this themselves. By all intents and purposes, when you guys close down your Main Street for, what's the name of it? Western Day? Fall Festival, thank you. That is an example of what we would call tactical urbanism, which is a lot along the lines of this sort of project. Also, there's some legislation that might come down that's going to allow Caltrans to do this sort of quick build, very rapid project, very low cost. It's a big one for Caltrans, is telling them, hey, this isn't very expensive and you can do it over and over and over again. Really makes me hopeful for the future, but it's going to be an uphill battle. I'd like to say that the urban experiment that we've been doing since World War II has a 60-year head start on us. So we've got some catch up to do. Do you want to ask something?
Regarding the intersection over by the schools, you mentioned that people blow those stop signs all the time, and they do. When they get out of school, they're not even there, those stop signs. They just come around that corner on two wheels, both directions. And it's all day long. Nobody stops at that stop sign except maybe us older seniors that know better. But do you ever consider putting license plate readers up there and issuing tickets for running stop signs? Because you could pay for a resource officer with the revenues you'd get off of that. The other thing is, on Highway 20, I don't know if that's probably in your bailiwick too, but right at Main Street, and I don't want to curtail local businesses from being able to have their trucks unloaded, but when you have a truck parked on the highway going west, both at the gas station and at the market, you have to actually come out into the driving lane before you can turn off of Main Street out onto the highway. And it's a real challenge. And I guess just recently someone came out there and it took out the light pole right there. You probably noticed it laying on the ground there, but it's gone. And then in Nice, I've been here since '74, and I can't tell you how many times I've observed people using the 50-mile-an-hour lane in the center to pass everybody. And I've seen where people have been hit there now because the cars in the driving lane have stopped for a pedestrian and right over the top of them. So I don't know what you do about those things except put some 4-foot speed bump in there. 4 foot high I'm talking about. But anyway, there's things that need to be addressed, and because that's what they use that for, is the passing lane most of the time. And it's probably people from out of town. What you can do about it, I don't know. But you might think about license plate cameras. We got them all over town. We got them at the bridge out here. We got them on Elk Mountain Road. Put a couple in town.
Yeah, plate readers are really good. I know that there's been some success. Basically, since 2020, there's been a real increase in the essentially normalizing the California right-hand stop where you're not stopping at a stoplight. And I know that sometimes, I know that in larger municipalities that's been successful, especially on those right-hand turn, even the ones that say no right-hand turn on red light. Those are exactly the ones where it's definitely warranted. I definitely still think that the way Strong Towns approaches things is from a very bottom-up perspective. So they would, this isn't really possible on Caltrans property, but like, for example, the city of Lakeport has a center turn lane, and it has something similar to what you described, where you have delivery trucks in that center turn lane. And if any of you have driven down Lakeport in the last 3-4 years, you probably noticed that we have orange barricades to protect some of these parklets that we have. And in my opinion, that's one of the best things we could have done for slowing down the speed on Main Street. Main Street is a drag strip in Lakeport. Yours is a little bit narrower here, but you also got some angled parking. But using those things, those orange barricades and things like hay bales really can galvanize a community to start thinking about these things differently and kind of see what's possible in kind of retaking our public spaces as well.
It might be just good for us to just simply talk to our business people and see if they couldn't talk to their produce delivery guys to back up about 20 feet from the intersection rather than park right at Main Street on the highway where you can't see. If they'd stay back about 20 feet on either side, maybe we get enough visibility to get out of there without getting killed.
And Thomas and I did also on the center divider thing. When we got to look at a meeting for the Complete Streets projects on Highway 20, we emphasized a lot that was happening, that people were using that center turn lane, and that you also don't need a center turn lane on every single block. You don't need it for the entire length of the block. So, narrowing that down where you eliminate a center turn lane in places and then you have it again, right? Those sorts of things also, they tell drivers' brains, hey, something's different going on here. I'm sure you guys noticed that with roundabouts too, right? Where it's like you come to these roundabouts and it's like, hey, something's different going on here. People still go through these, people still use these roundabouts as launch pads sometimes. But the reality is that, most people, if someone is like, hey, how do I, a normal driver, navigate this intersection? It really tells a driver how they should be behaving through an intersection. So definitely on my radar. I've thought about this a lot. not just for Highway 20, but also for what used to be Highway 29 cutting through Lakeport. So,
Hey, Danny,
definitely a great
one more,
Yeah.
before going back to that slide of the school section there, not this, but
This
the,
one. Yeah.
Claudine, is that the area you've been concerned about all this time, or is it deeper in the other parts, other parts of the map? I know exactly where that's at as well, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be a safe passage for the middle schoolers onto the high school.
Just the intersection north of it. It's First and Second Street, essentially.
Danny,
Right, but
Yeah.
putting a new, exit and entry for them to cross, so that they're not walking on gravel up to hit the paved area.
Yeah. Yeah.
So-
I noticed that, and I noticed that crosswalk, and I noticed it was weird.
It's very-
So thank you for validating my observations, because I thought that was a little odd. Yeah, this kind of thing is what basically engineers aren't necessarily trained to develop. They're not necessarily trained to take qualitative community input and apply like highway road standards to those things. It's much more pull, and this is no knock on any of our engineering staff at Lakeport or our new director. It's just a matter of the engineering profession wasn't really trained in this way, and part of that is because street design is actually an art, and that's part of the reason why people can notice things that aren't working right on it. And so yeah, I just noticed that, yeah, First and Second Street, we have a similar problem in Lakeport, where you have your downtown corridor and your school corridor, and the connectivity between those two places is really not great, despite the fact that you have people who are biking and walking in this area. And that's all I kind of want to illustrate with these Strava maps, is just that there are people walking. Yeah. Sorry.
Thank you, Danny.
Thank
You're
you.
doing a really good job. I was surprised you didn't promote Strong Towns more. I happen to be a member of Strong Towns. I highly encourage everybody to get involved with Strong Towns. Thank you.
Yeah. Yes. You see one more? Yeah.
Well, I was really interested in the books that you have there, and I was wondering if you could.
Did you? I'll touch on the books in a second. Did you want to go? I'll do it right before I wrap up, because I do have some goodies.
Thanks, EJ.
Hi.
But I was just gonna say, as a walker, I went to all three of those schools, elementary, middle, and high. We don't use crosswalks. We walk in the middle of the street. We walk wherever we can. And at that particular intersection, I don't know if they still have off-campus lunch. I imagine in 2024 we close the campus, but we walk right through there to get to Main Street, and we wouldn't really look. Also, as a new driver, that intersection used to scare the mess out of me, and so I always ran the stop sign, like when I could go, and I just know that that's a shared experience. The other thing is, just as a walker, since I've returned, I live on Clover, and one of the biggest concerns that I would have, if we're talking about walkability of Upper Lake, is we have a lot of blind curves. We have one on Middle Creek, we'll have one on Mendenhall, we have one behind Clover on the way through the cemetery by the school, we have one on the other side of the school. So that to me is something that if we're gonna have this conversation, I think that has to be a big part of it, because even when I'm walking my dog down Middle Creek towards Second, I have to cross the street, walk in the middle of the street, and pause because nobody follows the speed limit, and I don't want to get hit by a car.
Yeah. I mean, these are all things that it's like, it's so nice to hear other people saying this sometimes, because it's like I've walked these streets in Lakeport, and it's a similar thing where Lakeport does pretty good with sidewalks, but there's still definitely some gaps there. Just for my edification, which one's Clover Creek on here? I know that this is first. It's over by the school. Okay, that's okay.
So if you're
Kind of behind.
You turn right on Second from Main, then you're gonna turn left on Middle Creek, which is another lovely intersection. Clover's the street right there.
Okay. Yeah, and I.
Before you get to Alcantara, by the Forest Ranger Station.
Okay, got it. Yeah, I see it. Yeah, and I mean that's another thing too, right? Is it's like this is a good example that actually Blue Zones did, and they kind of asked the audience when we were doing the active transportation plan for Lakeport, they asked, hey, if you were born before 1984, how far did your parents let you guys go to walk, right? How far could you walk? Most people will say a grocery store, a school, it was a mile or 2 miles away, and then now you ask parents and young people how far they were allowed to go, and you'll find that oftentimes it's, oh, the end of my block, oh, I could go to school, but we were only a quarter mile away. So a lot of those factors contribute to it, but the people that walk this do know that. You're already doing that humble observation while you're out there, and sometimes it's just a matter of getting the right people to notice the things that you've noticed your whole entire life. So thank you. It's good for me to know because I'm not familiar. What's up, BJ?
Thank you, Danny. I just wanted to highlight some things because Danny reached out to me, I want to say at the beginning of the year, because of the numerous deaths and accidents and things like that. Thomas has been very active when it comes to the advisory committee for Caltrans as well. And so with that, what is that? I thought that was me. I was like, is that me? Okay. And so I remember back in March, I probably told you guys about that meeting that I had at RCRC where the Secretary of Transportation was present at the meeting, and there were so many questions, and I went to him as he was leaving and just said, your biggest thing is safety. So we have an issue in Lake County where we've had numerous deaths and wrecks and things of the like, and his executive assistant said, I travel through Lake County all the time, and my favorite place is Nice Frosty. I says, well, Nice Frosty's not there no more, but that's where these accidents and deaths are happening. And so following that, in April, I had a meeting with the actual transportation in Caltrans, and they talked about the same project that Thomas was talking about and you were talking about. And then there is a project 25 and 26 that's happening, Highway 20, and there's going to be 2 flashing beacons, rectangular rapid flashing beacons. One's going to be right here on Main, across from Main to I keep wanting to call it it's just the gas station. And then there's going to be one over at the casino, right where the park is. Not the casino, but where the park is. So there's one there. There's going to be, I think, 2 or 3 in Nice. So there'll be at Sayre. It will be at that same spot where Dollar General is, and there's going to be one over by where Worldmark is. And there's going to be some in Lucerne. They're going to the paint on the crosswalks are going to be removed, and then they're going to put a more high visible one, and then there's also going to be one in Clear Lake Oaks. And so that's just starting in 25. There'll be more in 26. The part of the discussion was a lot of what you talked about, and a lot of the concerns about passing in the middle, and they're going to look at things like, like you said, right turn lanes and tapered edges, things like that. So they're looking at also, because we're routing the big semis around 29 with that whole plan. So they even said that they have technology that will read if the manifest has a need to go through Highway 20, because we know that if they're supposed to go around the other way. So they're looking at that as well. And so just staying on them with you two on the advisory committee, and you doing Strong Towns, and anybody else that reaches out to them. And I'll be saying the same thing in the South Deal Committee. So a lot of the advocacy that everyone's doing here, everything that you do in this, I know that a lot of people think that Worth doesn't amount to anything, but it does because of what you say in here. So just letting you know that a lot of that is because of everything you're talking about, especially the safe schools, because you guys have constantly been bringing up the schools and that situation, and so having those at those intersections are going to help as well.
Thank you, EJ.
Pass it back over here, and then maybe I'll get to the. Got it? Okay, cool. Thanks. And then maybe I'll jump to the books.
Okay, hi. My house is right there, on Highway 20 in Nice. Yeah. And late at night, 2, 3 in the morning, my bedroom window's facing 20. I hear people doing donuts and gunshots and, screams, and the semis are barreling through like crazy. So I call CHP constantly. I'm talking 2, 3 in the morning. I'm calling CHP and Lake County Sheriff. And they say, look, lady, we don't have enough police right now. We're busy, first of all. They say the semis can go down 20 unless it's hazmat. issues with semis. Like every other all semis can, barrel down 20 and 100 miles an hour if they want to at 3 in the morning. And, the CHP's not really care. I mean, in Lake County Sheriff, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, they're tired of me calling and calling every single night with this. So, okay. That's what I have to say. Okay.
That's all right. I mean, I think that's that's definitely the case with a lot of our public agencies. Yeah, go ahead.
You have those stoplights in town with the lighted perimeter around them.
Yeah,
That brings
illuminated
people's
stop sign.
attention to, gee, look at that, that's nice, I'll stop. It might be helpful, like at the schools and stuff.
Yeah, that is actually one of the things that's it's kind of in the same realm as these. It's kind of in the same realm as these rapid reflective flash beacons, and you're right. It does cost money, but like I said, I'm really hopeful that we're going to see more of these little projects too. Because the other thing is that when you do these little projects, it doesn't put you on the hook for the long-term consequences of that, right? Where it's like that crosswalk that's up north of that area just between the middle school and the high school. That was probably put in place there when people were walking in a very different way. And so when you put, low cost stuff on the ground there, it's not so much of a burden if you have to change it or do something a little differently or add more supportive structures or anything. So all great points. But yeah, illuminated stop signs is absolutely a good one. Yeah. Yeah, right. That being said, I'll just quickly run through kind of my stuff. I have some handouts on the back page. I was supposed to get more from AARP. They have a newsletter called their Livability newsletter. And I have some little flyers for that. You can find it online. Take as many as you want. They send them whenever they send me publications. They will also send you publications for free, just to your house, up to a certain amount. There's lots of fun stuff. Whether it's pop-up placemaking, where you're talking a lot about like doing things with hay bales and doing dining parklets and closing down alleys and main streets to make way for pedestrian-friendly environments. I only have one of these left, but I'll be getting some more in the future, and again, they're free if you want them. The missing middle housing is just on housing. Oh, yeah, here you go. Let me take it. That's okay. It's if you go on this little flyer here that's in the back on the table back there, you can grab it. It's got the URL code on it, so you can go on your website. If you just search AARP Livable, it'll show up with the library and with all this information. They also have some other stuff on housing. So this is the missing middle housing. It's basically the long short of it is that we have a lot of single-family homes and we have a lot of apartment complexes, and we don't really have a lot of the stuff in between that, like townhomes that kind of made up the core of American cities for a long time as people built up their wealth and kind of their families changed. They also have one called Housing for a Changing America. Some of the books I have, I brought Strongtown's first book. It's Strongtown's A Bottom-Up Revolution to Rebuild American Prosperity. It is available through the Lake County Library. It's also available on audiobook through the Lake County Library, as well as their two other books. Their second book is on transportation, and it covers similar themes. This kind of just touches on it, but then it goes much deeper in their second book on transportation, and that kind of informs a lot of the stuff that I'm doing with these sort of street designs. And one of the things they advocate for is a street design team, which essentially kind of approaches projects a little differently. When we do a resurfacing project for the road, why not repaint it a little bit differently and kind of take a qualitative analysis of how well it works, see if it works better, see if things need to be changed. This other one here is called Walkable City. It's in the recommended reading for that first book. It's by Jeff Speck, and it talks a lot about how communities kind of grew up with people walking. We talk about the people that lived here for thousands of years before us, and they did not have cars, and they lived here for a long time without cars. So, communities definitely can exist without them. However, we've made it very, very easy for people to drive, and generally the stuff like this actually makes it easier and more intuitive for people who are driving. or maybe who are inexperienced, or unfortunately inebriated. All of these things kind of contribute to how we want to design streets to induce that behavior. With that, the third book in the Strong Town series just came out, and it's also on housing. And they just kind of touch on it in this first book, but it is also available through the Lake County Library, and it's available on an audiobook, which is much my preferred medium. If you guys have any other questions, I'll probably hang out for a bit, but I think I'll wrap up. Thank you guys so much. I know it took up a lot of time. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Danny. All right, we're going to have Chief Ciancio give us a report on. Try that.
Thank you. Hey, good evening. Mike Ciancio, the fire chief with North Shore Fire. I'm not sure if I've been asked to come. I know I haven't been here a while, but like everything else, lots of openings and lots of work to be done. So playing two roles at once is difficult at best. So what we will try, we're into fire season now. I will say that because I helped Chief Cepeda with the OES stuff at a county level, all of the crews have really done a good job keeping things small. I was on vacation, I wasn't here for the little fire that we had on Hammond that burned an acre and a half, a couple outbuildings, things like that, but we had some wind, and that crossed the highway up into Lakeview and Nice. I probably wouldn't be standing here today. I'd be still working on that. That area is hard. If fire gets established in there, we're not going to save much. So very good work by the crews. I know that from a fire service point of view, we are hitting it hard with a lot of resources, way more resources than we need. But until we get someone there, get some eyes on it, get things established, we want everything rolling. And so far it's worked in the county. We had another fire just the other night, midnight, started down in Clear Lake that was going to burn some homes, and they stopped it down there. I was on my way, I never made it. But so fire season's here. The one thing I gotta say is the majority of our fires that we've already had in Lake County this year are two culprits: mowing and grinders in the grass. Those are two combos that don't work. If you're gonna mow, it's not a law, but if you're gonna mow, you should do it before 9, 10 o'clock in the morning. At that time frame, stop. There's still moisture in the ground as we speak, but you should stop mowing by 9:30 in the morning. Those are the majority of our 8 or 9 of our calls, incidents that we've had countywide have been due to mowing. So I don't know why we're waiting until 2 o'clock in the afternoon to mow, and so late in the year, but it's tough. But if you have to mow, you have to do it first thing in the morning. We had a pretty good 4th, believe it or not. Even CAL FIRE was kind of surprised at the lack of mortars and things that were shot outside of the Lakeport city limits. So I was up for all 3 nights patrolling, and we really honestly did not have that many. Yes, there was some that went off, but it sounds like some of these messages are coming across to people. So that's hopeful. The fuels crew, they're going strong. Still looking for recruiting every single day. I just hired 4. They're going through the backgrounds. I'm probably going to interview 4 more tomorrow or the next day and hire 4 more. So we're working hard to get that crew staffed up so that we can get some more work done. And they work year round. As far as the suppression side, the ambulance side of the fire department, we're still recruiting. We did recruit a paramedic that is going to work full time for us as a part-time rate, but it's really tough still to find paramedics to come to work here. So, or in the county, every department, with the exception of maybe Kelseyville, is looking for paramedics right now. So it's still pretty much open market. I do have 2 employees full-time that went to last year's paramedic course. They're still 6 or 8 months out from being paramedics and being put on the street. And in the upcoming course that Mendocino College puts on, I have, I think 1 or 2 more in that class. Starts in August. It's almost a 2-year process though. So it's not a short-term fix, it's a long-term fix, but the future looks a little bit better. The Fire Chiefs Association continues to work with the high schools and things like that and try to get some medical training up front and in the high school. And then we can move them right into volunteering and into jobs and hopefully into college, and we have to grow our own. And so that's our goal right now. There's currently was a EMT class in Clear Lake High School. No, Lower Lake High School, Canocti, and and they're talking about starting one at Lakeport in the Clear Lake School. So that's kind of an update of where it's all been going on in the district. Any questions?
Question. How is abatement going for personal properties that people have? Are people complying?
Really, that's a question for code enforcement. I don't really pay attention to that. I mean,
I know, I'm just speaking about grass.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
some are mowed, some are not. You know, it's based on a complaint. So if there's a complaint filed with code enforcement, they'll start the process in doing that. Sometimes they call us to have us go out and look at it, and we'll say, yeah, it probably needs to be. But on others, you know, we have a lot of absentee owners that haven't been around in years to their property. Matter of fact, I had one gentleman call me. He's 77 years old. The property was donated to him. He remembers his parents owning the property in Lucerne. He hasn't been here since he was 13. He hasn't seen it in that many years, and he wanted to donate it to the fire department. So, so I went and looked at it. It's a hillside. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know what you want me to do with that. So, but the brush, there's no access to it. There's a lot of problems. So we have a lot of lots like that.
Okay, exactly what you're talking about. I called Governor Newsom's office about what you're talking about. I talked to them about Office of Emergencies at Governor Newsom's office. And they said for me to file a complaint against Lake County Office of Emergency because of this problem, because there's absentee, paperless lots, landowners that are not cutting the grass behind my house. My house is butt against in East Lakeview. The grass was 10 feet tall, you know, branches hitting the grass, what they call ladder or something. And they said, it's your guys' responsibility, Lake County Office of Emergency Services, to do this, to get onto these landowners with code enforcement, to clean up their crap. I had to get my neighbor, we had to go out there and weed eat someone else's lots so our house doesn't burn down. And we're furious. I'm telling you, we're furious about this in Nice. My neighbors and I. We're tired of this. Go after those people.
So it is not the Office of Emergency Services responsibility.
They said it was the governor's
Well,
office. They said it was. And Lake County and code enforcement.
okay, I'm not here to argue, all right? I'm telling you the truth here. The issue is a code enforcement issue, and I'm not here to argue with you. You want an explanation or not? You want an explanation or not? Okay, next. I'm not the county. Number one, I'm not the county.
Lynn?
Lynn, data ticket is in place now, so they can find them just on the spot. I know it's taken a while, and I know you're frustrated. You've been saying this for the past year and a half. Right. Data ticket is in place. Code enforcement can now just give them a ticket rather than taking the complaint in, writing it up, waiting. You guys are sitting and waiting for and nothing happens. Now they can give them a ticket and be fined for the vegetation abatement ordinance.
There's one comment on that. For next month, we have invited Marcus back.
Yes, over here.
It's part of the new, just to get off onto the new program, which we'll talk about next month, Copter, which is going to cover more exclusively in the Nice area. But I know I had some property in Big Bear area. I don't know if you guys know where Big Bear is at in Southern California. Beautiful, beautiful place. And we didn't have we had a little lot there. I think it wasn't Big Bear, it was outside there. But man, that lot wasn't worth that much, but we got abatement constantly notified. If we didn't cut it, we had to hire someone, cut it, and everything. So I think at some point, under our code enforcement, they need to start working with the, with the fire department to make sure that we have these lots cut by the owners, whoever the owners may be.
Hey, Chief, we appreciate everything you do in this county because I know it's tough. In fact, we had another wildland fire on North Mountain Road, about 2 parcels up for me, and it scared the crap out of me.
That was grinding.
Yeah, you got it out in a hurry, thank you. How's our fire department budget situation?
So, it's low. It is what it is. We've tried 2 measures. They both failed. I'm going to go off on a tangent. I was very, very supportive of ACA 1, which you'll see on the ballot this winter. But there's a lot of trailer bills on it that I think are going to make it fail. So ACA 1 was to bring special districts in with a supermajority, 55%, instead of the 66 2/3% originally. But our legislature added a bunch of trailer bills onto it, one being the dissolvement of Prop 13. It's probably going to fail because of that. It's just being real. So I'm a little frustrated about that because I thought Aguilar Carey was doing a good job with ACA 1 until they added all these extra trailer bills on. We don't have a direct measure. We haven't here in Upper Lake. Your direct charges are for a residential home on a lot is $45. Hasn't changed since 1996. So that's the budget we have. So the money we receive out of that is that. And it's $65 at Clear Lake Oaks. And it's 2 other prices in between at Lucerne and Nice. So, really, it depends on what type of fire service and fire response you want is based on what is out there. We get from the county what we get. We've had some improvement of the property tax money from that due to our auditors and stuff at the county kind of updating things. So we're seeing a little bit better, but we're still really low, and it's going to be hard to compete in the open market for paramedics, basically. I can hire firefighters if that's what you all want them to do, but it's more difficult to get someone to come into this county. 60% of my staff drives 2.5 hours to get to work. They're not local. So for them to come to me and say, hey, I'm resigning, I got a job closer to home, I totally understand. That's why I said earlier, we have to grow our own here. And we have to make that work. It's the only way it's going to work. Just my opinion.
I just have a comment. It kind of circles back to fire. I don't know if other property owners are facing termination due to our high fire risk. And within that realm is the CAL FIRE, which is extremely expensive, and it only covers fire, not the liability. So I don't know if anybody else is struggling with that,
So
but I am.
any retired CAL FIRE in here? Okay. First of all, some of that has been brought on by CAL FIRE. Every 50 years, they redo their fire maps. They're currently in that process of redoing their fire maps. If you've looked at a fire map of Lake County, most of it is of the SRA, the state responsibility area, is in the high fire zone. So when Lynn over here says that her fire tax is going to 5,000, that's because she's in a high fire zone in the SRA. We can't control that. That is done. The insurance companies will tell you that they don't look at those maps, which I think is not right, but not correct from what I know from the fire service side. The local response area, which is like downtown Upper Lake, out through the valley here, you know, parts of Lakeport, things like that, where there's not a lot of hills and things like that, that's called local responsibility area. They're now starting to say that the insurance company starts to think, because you are surrounded by high fire severity zones, the local area is also going to be the same. I'm in the same boat Lynn is. My place, I don't know what I'm going to do if the insurance goes up. It doubled this year. So I'm prepared to pay it, but I don't know how many more years. And if I retire, I don't know that I can pay it. So I understand the frustration. There's not a huge answer for it, for the insurance costs. The fire service in general, from the Western Fire Chiefs, which includes Washington, Oregon, Nevada, and Idaho, all are convening with the insurance companies on a regular basis to figure out how we can fix this, how we can make this better, and what will help with being more comfortable. And I don't know what that is right now.
Lynn?
There's three of them.
Hi. I guess there was a plan to burn off the Clover Creek levees, and
Yeah.
I assume it just got too dangerous to have any kind of controlled burns. But so what happened is that the original mowing was kind of coarse, and it all grew back. And so now we got 2-3 feet of dry grass out there, and it would burn readily.
Yeah, it would. But what the water resources, we're working with water resources to burn that off. We'll burn it off probably in the fall now. When there's more resources available, the plan was we put in a line, you can see the control line that we've put there to burn the grass off so that they can better evaluate the levee when it's bare soil. So that's going to happen probably in the fall. At this point, we couldn't get it done earlier, but it is what it is. We were a week short of getting that done. That was right before I went on vacation, but the plan was to utilize the Forest Service and our CAL FIRE partners to help with the resource order list and make sure that it was controlled. So still on part of the plan, but once it's done, and we plan on doing, I think, about a half a mile all along there for starters. If we can get more, we'll get more. It just depends on what type of fire season we have in the fall, what type of resources are available, will we have enough resources? Those are just, things that you can't plan ahead on. So we're still planning on it. Behind you, Tim, behind you. Yeah.
Hi, Julia Carrera, Upper Lake. Captain, thank you for this year. I felt safer this year than I have in a long time about fires being put out. And I want to thank everyone that is fighting fires in this region. I think they're doing an exemplary job. Thank you. And maybe this question will be answered next week if code enforcement is coming, or maybe Supervisor Crandall, next month, or maybe Supervisor Crandall, you know. But when you do initiate code enforcement and nothing happens, and there's 6-foot tall grass on county property and nothing happens and that's the complaint you file. Or while you're on vacation, your neighbor has 6-foot grass in her walnut orchard that isn't mowed, which is also fire danger. I went ahead and mowed the counties like I do with the culverts and everything else because it needs to be taken care of. And I'm willing to put in my energy and my finances to do that. But what happens when there is no response? What do we do? Because there's been no response for our neighbor. We happen to be neighbors. Her walnut orchard, which is a huge fire hazard. For the county maintained strip by my place that I continue to mow because no one else is. And I complain and there's no response. So I don't know what to do. I can't continue to afford to take care of these things. Can someone direct me on how to handle it when no one does anything on county?
I had a comment. I want to get back to what I was going to talk to you about. Thank you guys again. I want to appreciate your patrolling July 4th in Nice. Every year there's been someone near that park blowing. Yeah, it's been beautiful. But this year we were really quite concerned, and I saw it didn't happen. And I think the next night somebody tried, or then 2 nights again, and it was stopped, either through you guys or the sheriff's department. So appreciate that very much. I had a question about a house that burned down in Merced. And I thank your crew for stopping that fire. Luckily, the wind and the weather was not terrible that night, but still stopping that fire. It was quite scary for our neighborhood. We had an alert system. At 3 in the morning, I woke up with a person going around alerting everybody, and I was half asleep until I saw the fire truck, and I figured something was going on, and then through Facebook and other Nexus report. However, the person that owns that house, or the person that lived with the owner, and their person died in that fire, as you know, is that being investigated? And is there anything going to go on against these people, or can you even comment on that?
Well, can't comment on much of that.
Okay.
The fire, I can tell you that I contract with a state certified fire investigator that does all of our fires, if they're suspicious fires. I'm not going to say that one was suspicious because I don't think it was, but I include him on every fire that has a fatality, just because I'm not the expert, he is. So we called our fire, he comes from the Bay Area, and he comes at a moment's notice, and he was there at 6 o'clock in the morning after I called him. So it is being investigated. It's still under investigation. Again, I don't know what the outcome of that investigation will be, if they'll ever even know the cause of that fire. That's a tough one, because it burned pretty hot and pretty long, and there's not a lot of evidence. So I don't know the outcome of that. And then it's not up to at that point, you have to decide, was there a criminal intent here, or is there something to charge? And that becomes a decision from the sheriff's office and the district attorney. We don't make that decision.
Right. Okay, thank you.
If I may, Chief, I walked the area like 2 or 3 days later because I was very curious how we were going to get in and get out if we were called in there as a support group. And of course that would have been pointless. But there's a dead end in there. And as I'm walking the program around that loop of Merced, I'm looking at the existing ground and the existing fire material that's still there. And I didn't see at that point in time, very close to a weekend, where people were out, cutting it down or moving it off and green barreling it and stuff like that. And isn't there, or is there, and I know that you multitask like a fiend, but that looks like an area ripe for yet another fire as grievous or worse. And do you in the department call attention to what may be an oversight for code enforcement after reviewing the scene with your investigators?
So the investigators are focused on the fire, not the prevention.
Right.
You're right. It's a dead-end road. To my amaze, and I've been here 10 years, I didn't even know that was Marin Street, because Marin Street goes the other way, around the mountain, or around the hill there. It makes no sense how they made the names, but that's a fight for another day, a battle for another day. A lot of the named roads don't make a lot of sense there, for sure. There are several old timers that have told me that that road used to dirt road down the hill to the next road down, which I don't remember the name of it, Sayer maybe, I don't remember.
It's Floyd.
What?
Floyd Way.
Floyd, yeah. And that was, we were trying to access people, engines in from that way, knowing that the fire was pushing that way. Learned a few lessons there as far as that. But I do know that we have a lot of streets that go nowhere, or that are so overgrown that technically are county roads, but they're, well, how do they put it? Non-maintained county roads. A lot of them are in Nice. And that's a problem, you know, for us getting in and out. We'll do our best to get in and out, but we've been in several roads. California, I think, is one of them, way up there, that is very, very brushy and overload. I don't know that we could get an engine up there. We'd be better off with a dozer. So getting into some of those places, I spent 26 years in Fort Bragg before I came here, and spent a lot of summers in that time in Southern California fighting fires down there, 2003 on through all the big ones, Espinosa, 2007, all of those. When I came here, I was like, how are we, if we were in Southern California right now, we would not even drive down these roads. And the issue was, I was told, well, you have to. You're here now. So I'm like, okay, well, we'll do our best to get what we can, but there's single roads, dirt roads, and some of them are very difficult to get to. And if they're non-maintained by the county, who's maintaining them? That's an issue. You know, property owners have taken it into their own hands in some cases and cut the brush back. I don't remember what street, but one of the streets up there in Nice, the March storms blocked people in. They were locked in. They couldn't get out for like 3 days. And we finally had to go in there with the crew and cut the trees out of the road, chipped them, got them out of the way, so we at least get a car in and out. So we have a lot of those issues. And do we go in and talk to code enforcement afterwards? If we can, for sure. Egress is part of something that should be responsible of the Public Works and the county for specifically, you know, Marin Street there. But again, it's kind of out of my control. There's so much, I mean, I don't know where you would start and stop, honestly, with some areas. I really don't.
I don't mean to be cruel to Marcus, but I would have wished him to be on a choke chain along with the gang that was trying to move vehicles around in there, and have him stumble through what is the overgrowth. And it didn't go away.
Yeah. And we have a lot of areas like that, not just Marin Street, for sure. But that is one of our target areas. We know we got a fire established in that Lakeview area, and the wind's blowing that way. It's not a if, it's going, we're going to lose a lot of homes in there. They can just jump. We've been lucky so far.
All right, do we have any more questions for the chief?
I was just going to comment, we had there's another person that lives nearby Marin Street on Merced, which is off of Floyd, and we've dealt with him blocking the street over and over with cars, and we actually called CHP, and they did come out, and he's kind of left the lane open now, but that was a concern after that fire, because we were scared we weren't going to be able to at least go that way. So call CHP, and tell them you have a blockage to the road, and they'll probably come out for you. They did for us on that issue, so. Yeah, they'll deal with right-of-way or I don't know, road blockways with vehicles, so.
Yeah, just one last thing, you know, how do I put this? We haven't got approved yet, so I don't want to get any hopes up, but every entity in the county and in the fire districts and the communities and the fire safe councils, we're all working together. And I've seen more people working harder to battle this problem. It's something we're not going to win overnight. Grass grows back every year. We have a great winter, it snows, whatever. The grass is going to grow back. We just have to get more diligent with taking care of our own properties and working on that. OES, I'm part of it, Lake County OES, Chief Cepeda, myself, and staff at Lake County OES, we put together a grant for about, I can't remember how much, $2.5 million, I think. And what it is going to do is we are going to provide to the communities a water can fire extinguisher and a McLeod hand tool, so that in each fire, like say 100 or 200 for each fire district. And during Fire Prevention Week, our plan is to hand those out. You prove you're a resident, that's what you get. It's worked in the South County. South Lake County Fire did this already. They gave out 150 of them, and we already have, I think they have 7 or 8 documented fires that were mitigated by tools from this type of grant. So a lot of things are in the works. It's slow. It doesn't happen overnight. It's not fast enough for anyone in this room, but it is being done, and there are good things happening. We just have to continue and stay the course. So thank you. Appreciate everything that the communities have done to stop any fires that we've had. So.
Thank you, Chief. All right, we gotta speed things up.
Okay.
We're gonna make
Oh,
a
sorry.
you wanna say something?
I'll just speak really quickly. Last meeting, I brought up the biochar proposal on Highway 20, 755 Highway 20. And I'm kind of doing speaking for several residents that live on and near the site. And I thought that we were going to have a representative from there to speak. But I did a little reading, and I have some questions about the content that would be utilized. It said that any carbon-based material like wood, agricultural waste, or municipal solid waste could be utilized. So I don't know where they're at with the process, or if a permit has been issued from air quality. I'm not sure, but last meeting I asked that we create a letter, and Tim was so gracious to do that, and it says, the Western Region Town Hall has initiated this letter to express our concerns regarding the proposed AG Forest Wood Processing Bioenergy Project. We realize that the proposed project is complex in its implementation and represents a considerable investment in time and funds. We in no way are expressing a negative opinion of the project or its goals. We are concerned that the project has not been presented to the Upper Lake community in a timely fashion. Specifically, there has been no community engagement regarding any of the potential impacts of the project, including traffic, noise, and management of on-site materials. Also, some presentation of pertinent facts concerning the process to the town hall would have been welcomed. Local citizen interest in the nature of and the extent of this project is high, as witnessed by the large turnout at our June Worth meeting. A complete presentation of the project to the town hall would be much appreciated. Respectfully, Tim, with the Worth chairperson. I appreciate that. And I was under the impression that the gentleman was going to return And,
Tom Jordan, you mean? The same
that
fellow
pre-
that was
yeah.
here last month?
He was going to,
I don't remember that he was in it.
my understanding was he was
That
going
he
to
was gonna be here
Yeah, he was
tonight?
going to be here and present, so he could
Well,
answer.
he ain't.
Well, okay, I'm still concerned about maybe odor, and, you know, I understand the emissions and particulate might be contained, but I'm wondering about odor, I'm wondering about the number of trucks that would be coming and going. I did speak with one person that said they thought there was only going to be one truck a day in, and it would remain, and, you know, far more minimal than what I understood.
In reading as much of the proposal as I've been able to read, it was more than one truck a day.
Yes, but this is misinformation that's out in the community.
10 trucks a day?
But, and the issue of the time, it was like from 7, and then I read some other information that it could go up to 10 o'clock at night. And my main concern is the traffic impact on Highway 20, and I really think that as a community, we need to know more about the project and what it entails.
So, who do we want to send this letter to? We want to send it to
EJ.
to the Scotts Valley,
Well,
Because it's still not even on, like, nothing for planning.
Right, I understand that. Yes.
And that's why you send your letter to them now.
Okay.
The Planning Commission.
The Planning Commission agenda is what I was saying. I wasn't referring to
Right.
the planning.
Okay.
So I wasn't talking about.
No,
I was talking about it sounds like an agenda for Planning Commission. So send your letter.
All right.
Letter today, send it. CC it to the board, CC to the Planning Commission.
Okay, so
Right.
as long as we're talking about this right now, okay, we obviously are. We skipped over and we're gonna make that subcommittee today. We're gonna make it, so you guys stay there. So, if you go on YouTube and type in pyrolysis, there's hundreds of videos about the process. And I think if anybody's really interested in what this all entails and what it's not a simple setup. It's quite complex. Yeah.
Yes.
And, but and every video you look at, they say it's all magical. Well, you know, I mean, they say it's nothing to it. You just put in a machine and it fixes everything.
It's like tooth fairies.
Yeah, I don't know, but I mean,
The quarter appears.
but
on
it's
your
like the
pillow.
big thing that we want. It would be very nice if we'd have had an step-by-step process. I mean, I'm not sure when this proposal went to the Planning Commission even. I mean, it seems like I mean, I got a notice of it in May, I think.
23rd of April. The 23rd of April.
That it went to the Planning Commission.
Well, the letter of intent was sent out, but it was incorrect because it had the improper phone number. They extended it another month.
But it seems to me that if that's the case, it's been somebody's been planning it long before. Yeah, just long before it came to the county.
The only thing that came to county was a lease.
Was it what?
The lease.
And
the lease of
that's
the
interesting because that was mentioned last month about the $1 a year lease for 2
And
years.
from just listening in last meeting, just listening in from Zoom, they sent it to you in April, and that's when they moved forward for it, right?
Oh, I think I got the email, the big
Right.
proposal, 260
Right.
pages.
And then I know that Terry Logston came last year and talked about the potential of one of these happening. And just to let you know too, like, he mentioned something about Robinson Rancheria, and when I talked to Robinson Rancheria, they said they weren't working with them on this because they wanted, just like everyone here, wants to see something happen first.
Right.
And then they'll decide from there, but they're not working with them on this. I know that because I asked them. And so it's the same concept, and it's going through CEQA. When Terry reported it, someone from the board asked, or the council asked here, that, well, will we have any say? And Terry had said, if it even gets implemented, it will have to go through CEQA. So despite what's happened, even if the lease doesn't go, the lease won't live out if the project doesn't pass. And so it has to go through CEQA, which requires your input. And so I think it's very imperative that you turn the letter in.
Thank you, EJ. Okay. So,
But in the meantime, they're chewing down $3 million.
well, not their money.
Chump change.
I don't know.
What's 3 million? The grant money?
Yeah,
Have they received the grant
Say
money
again?
already?
I believe so.
The letter, the letter.
Yeah, I think they have to use it for the.
Well, yeah, as long as they know
Well,
where to.
somebody's got it.
You can keep it.
All right.
They got a planning grant, and that's where they're at. So
Yeah.
if they're spending money, it is, they have to submit a request for proposal and be awarded it. And then as the supervisor said, it will, most of the time, you have to spend it according to those line items. And if you don't, it goes back into the pool of money.
That's a useful hurdle.
I've been farming for 40 or more years, and to the best of my knowledge, there is not a large market for biochar in the agricultural community. It's kind of a novel thing, and a new thing, yeah. And so I saw this proposal and I said, well, are we really just looking at a biomass generating station here? I wrote a letter to the county and asked that, because there's a whole lot of questions about, what's really going to come out of this.
Thank you.
So, since last meeting, I've gotten a lot of communication. One which was a text which I would have brought, but my internet is down because the trellis crane hit the wire and broke it. But what I was sent was from 2023, a newspaper article saying that it was awarded and that it was going to be in Upper Lake, and it wasn't from the last one, it's for this one. And that was disconcerting for me because it felt like it's been in the plans behind the scenes for quite a while. My concern lies in the fact that it's going to clog up all drainage if we flood, and we're all going to be underwater longer than we need to be. And I don't mind the project, I just don't want it this close to Upper Lake in a flood zone on a scenic highway that doesn't allow industrial plants anyway, if in fact our designation still exists. And, it's prime ag land and it's an industrial project. That doesn't match up. Mr. Khan wants to lease the land to increase his hay production, which aligns very well with everything. And then my other concern is we don't have a full Upper Lake representation on this town hall. So if we're going to vote on something this important, I certainly hope we fill that seat before that vote takes place. Otherwise, we're not being fully represented. Thank you.
Thank you, Julia.
So I'd like to see the article because I think the one you're referring to is the one for the Red Hills, but I don't have it in front of me, so I don't know if that's what you're talking about. And this group has been very, very ardent advocates for Upper Lake. We do need to fill a spot, so if there's anyone that wants to be on the town council, please put in. But at the same time, there can be a vote. It's a recommendation. It's not this. The MACs are here for you to accentuate what you want the county to do. You're giving a letter. That's exactly what needs to be done. But they're non-decision making bodies, and so that you'll be fine as long as you have a quorum.
Thank you. You apply. You go to the county and you apply.
Come see me and I'll give you the link.
Yep. All right. Where are we? Subcommittee. We want to set up a subcommittee for Pile Road. We want to decide what we want to call it and who's going to be the. Do you have a chairman of a subcommittee?
How about pile on the road? Yeah.
Well, don't turn the gain up whether I'm talking or not. Okay, well, tell me to speak in the microphone. Don't turn the gain up. Thank you. It's too hot. It's too hot now. What did you say, Claudine?
Well, I said, I was being rather silly. I said pile on the road. I mean, I'm just thinking about on
What do you guys
all
have?
the debris.
You guys got a name in mind? Hello? Pile Road? No, it's a place where people are dumping trash. Okay, yeah. So, Pile Road abatement. Does that sound good?
I'm getting stiff.
Pile on the road. Okay, well, let's try to make it a little more efficient. Pile Road, okay. How about Pile Road abatement? That's not too bad. Okay, so.
Whatever the Pile Road people want.
But do you have like a chairman of that? Do you have to have a chairman for the subcommittee?
That's what we did. I mean,
We just make them and then they can decide. Oh. But somebody has to.
well,
Somebody
note-
has to head it up, you know?
yeah.
I
Tim,
know
you have
it's-
to have them speak into the microphone. If you guys want to come up to this podium and speak so we can get you on recorded, it's,
No. Well, let's do it, okay? We're gonna set it up, we're gonna call it Pile Road abatement.
Microphone. Listen. Microphone.
Microphone?
Thank you.
All right. Okay, we're gonna set up this subcommittee, we're gonna call it Pile Road abatement. If the council agrees with that, do we have a motion? Thomas, hang on. Do we have a motion to create this subcommittee, Pile
Is this
Road abatement?
is this I have a motion to create a subcommittee. Who's going to be on the subcommittee?
Let's create it first.
If I
You make a motion.
make a motion to create a subcommittee called Pile Abatement,
Pile Road abatement.
Pile Road Abatement.
Okay.
I second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to create a Pile Road abatement subcommittee. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. All right. So we're going to appoint Dave is going to be the head guy. Dave, we're going to appoint Dave Fredericks. Fredericks. Hendricks.
Okay.
Hendricks? Okay. Close. So do we have a motion and a second to appoint Dave Hendricks as the lead
I move to appoint Dave Hendricks, the chairman
of
the
the
subcommittee.
Pile Road Abatement
Pile Road
Subcommittee?
Abatement Subcommittee.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to appoint Dave. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. All right, Dave is now the. All right, Dave. Would you like to say anything? Would you like to say anything to the town hall?
Well, thank you very much.
We need somebody on the board to be a point person that we could talk to if we have questions about what we should do or how to do something.
What kind of questions do you have in mind? Like legal questions or?
Who to contact, what kind of, where to find forms and stuff.
Okay.
One of the things that's going to help with this committee, and we were talking about it last time, right, Thomas, after the meeting, was with the committee, they would be helping with not only just Pile Road, but planning for some of the garbage days and things like that. But I was just letting some folks know before this, and I think I'd let you all know too about the Cal Recycle grant that was just signed by the Community Development Department, and the area that you're representing, the ones that you consistently send pictures. They send actual sites like, what are they called? Coordinates. They send those and pictures, and it helps. I forward them to code enforcement, but they do a really good job. And this area is, all of the areas that you send are on the map. There's going to be a better map that's brought out, but there's places in Lucerne, it's going to be targeted by this grant. And so the project aims to address health and safety issues created by illegal dumping sites by funding abatement projects in 7 townships communities, North Lakeport, Nice, Lucerne, Clear Lake Oaks, Lower Lake, Middletown, and Kelseyville, and the highest need and environmental threats. The projects vary in nature, including illegal dumping on public roadways and long-term abatement cases that have proven challenging due to their size and complexity. Community input, complaints, and town hall meetings have identified these sites, it comes from this group right here. So you coming and doing this is one of the results is because of that. So just letting you know that that's what community development and code enforcement had identified, and the project encompasses a multifaceted approach combining abatement prevention measures, for example, barriers, surveillance cameras, public awareness campaigns including free dump days. The goal is to have a comprehensive impact on the community. Efforts to enhance cost recovery, such as issuing citations, administrative fines, and liens will contribute to the project's sustainability. And so when they come next month, make sure we get that on the list too to talk about, along with the issues that you're having. And this should really help, especially with data ticket being in place to address these fines. And so I was glad to know that. I knew they had put this in, but I didn't want to say that it was gonna, this is, hey, look, they're gonna get a grant and then if they didn't get it, then you would be discouraged. So if they did get it, let's make sure that when they come next meeting, they'll discuss it. Marcus did say that he would when he does come, but let's stay on him.
Let's refresh.
Thank you, Jay.
To comment on the committee or the chairman. Subcommittee, if you want to, I guess I can go ahead and be appointed on there if you'd like to have someone from the board.
You want to be the
But I'm also gonna,
the council.
I would also expand, like I said, like EJ talked about, expand it to beyond Pile Road, to the Nice area and other things that come up. But if you want to appoint me on there, we can do that.
So let's all exchange telephone numbers.
So before you go, I'll give you guys.
So Thomas will be your council person. Okay, and you will exchange contact information so that everybody.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. That's about. I want to just say a couple words about the General Plan Advisory Council. Sorry. All right. I just want to say a few words about the General Plan Advisory Council. I missed the first meeting, I went to the second meeting, and I missed the third meeting. But the second meeting was very impressive, and I want to encourage everybody to get as much involved with the General Plan Advisory Committee or Council, because they're deciding what Lake County is going to look like in 25 years. So we want to get as much input into that, and I have some. What are these things? I have, this is the Lake County 2050. This is about the general plan. And there's cards here that have some information so that you can follow them. And like I say, I would encourage everybody to get as much involved as they possibly can. Because we need to encourage our county officials to do the best job that they can possibly do. All right, thank you. Do we have a motion to adjourn? Oh, sorry, wait a minute. I need to go, we need to do announcements. Do we have any announcements? Do you have an announcement? No, how about the subcommittee for the schools? You want to make one of them too? So who's gonna run it? Microphone! I'm not speaking in the microphone? Okay. So we want to set up a subcommittee for the school, but the school traffic thing?
Safety. Safety.
School safety. In Upper Lake school safety. So who wants to, you will be the.
I'll be the point person.
You'll be the point person, but who's going to be on the committee? Who's going to run it?
Ray and.
You guys want to do it?
And Mary, yeah.
Okay, so Ray and Mary, we have a motion to set up an Upper Lake School Safety Subcommittee.
I have a motion to set up a
Upper Lake
Upper Lake
School Safety
School Safety
Subcommittee.
Subcommittee.
I second it.
We have a motion and a second to set up an Upper Lake School Safety Subcommittee. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. All right, the motion is passed. All right, so we are going to appoint Mary
And
to,
will be the contact.
yes.
What's her last? Friedrich.
I make a motion to appoint Mary Friedrich. Is that correct? I make a motion to.
Friedrich?
I make a motion to appoint Mary Friedrich
As the
chairperson for
the Upper Lake School Safety
School
Subcommittee.
Safety Subcommittee.
Okay, do we have a second?
Yes,
Do we have all those in favor?
yes.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, Mary is the, okay. And Claudine is going to be the point person from the council. All right, do we have any announcements?
What's the GPAC on the agenda? What's that?
That is the General Plan Advisory Council, and it's we had a meeting here. Were you here at that meeting? That they talked about the updating the general plan for the county, and they've set it to be Lake County 2050. Yes, and it's the local area. LAP. Yeah, okay. So the local plan is like for Upper Lake and for Nice and for, well, there's one for Upper Lake and Nice, isn't it? Yes, yes. And they're all part of the GPAC, right? Mary?
I just have a quick question. Does anyone know how to find out what a lot number, what a lot is, and how to get the lot to report it?
Assessors, isn't it?
So
Check with EJ.
The County of Lake has a website. It's a GIS. So look up County Lake GIS, and you sign in and get on this map, and it shows you all the roads and lots.
Okay.
I have just a quick announcement. Finally, the Upper Lake Senior Center is coming back into form. So we had some remodeling done. We're waiting for the generator, the new panel that will operate the generator. But we have new floors, new windows, and we're now trying to put it back together. So we're grateful.
What about your front steps?
The front steps are done. They're wonderful. Finally got those done, yeah. Those are kind of and a new paint job, so inside and out, it's revitalized.
Any more announcements? Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The meeting is adjourned. Thank you for coming.